I'm Bert.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the COOP Senior Forum for the candidates for the county executive. Let me talk about COOP first. COOP is a standing committee of the Community Solutions. It stands for the Council on Older Persons. And it looks at numerous items about seniors. Let me introduce our host for today. Actually, let me turn it over to Fatima, and she'll introduce the candidates.
Not quite, but
Okay.
big welcome from the Western Reserve Area Agency on Aging, our CEO, Dr. E. Douglas Beach, our board, our advisory council, and our wonderful workforce. As you know, older adults are a vital part of the community, not to mention they do vote. It is important to recognize that older adults have been disproportionately impacted by the pandemic and other factors. Though older adults play a pivotal role in economic development and our communities, sometimes this is not reflected in the allocation of resources. As a nation, it is important for our leaders to recognize the need to prioritize for older adults. And with that, we all want our seniors to be informed advocates. The Area Agency on Aging is proud to sponsor today's forum to further ensure that Northeast Ohio residents have what they need to live with dignity and respect. It's all yours, Orion.
All right, thanks very much, Fatima and Bert. I'm Orion Bell. I'm the President and Chief Executive Officer of the Benjamin Rose Institute on Aging, and we are honored to be a host of today's senior forum with the candidates for county executive as well. Benjamin Rose Institute on Aging has served the greater Cleveland area since 1908 with a variety of programs and services designed to help promote the independence and dignity and quality of life of older adults and family caregivers here in Northeast Ohio. And it's an honor to be a part of this forum today. With that, I'm going to proceed into introducing our first candidate to speak to us this morning. And I'd like to introduce Lee Weingart. Lee is the founder and president of LNE Group. And since 2002, he has cultivated his self-starting two-person business into one of the top advocacy and lobbying firms with a transatlantic reach from right here in Cleveland. Before founding the LNE Group, Mr. Weingart served in various public and private positions. From 1995 to 1997, he served as a county commissioner in Cuyahoga County. Cuyahoga County is the largest county in Ohio and among the 30 largest counties in the nation. And at 28, Mr. Weingart was one of the youngest people ever to serve as a county commissioner. Today, he speaks to us as a candidate of the county executive for Cuyahoga County. Welcome, Lee.
Well, thank you, everybody. Thank you for taking your time today to talk about issues impacting seniors. So I'm Lee Weingart, as you heard, and I'm running for county executive. I'm a lifelong resident of Cuyahoga County. I was born in Pennsylvania, but my family moved here when I was, I think, 6 months old. So I've raised my family in Cuyahoga County, mostly in Cleveland Heights and in Shaker Heights. I'm married for 28 years to Caroline Emmerich Weingart. We have 3 children, Lizzie, Ned, and Ethan, who collectively are the namesake of the firm you just heard about, LNE Group. So I served as county commissioner in the mid-1990s at a difficult time for the county. When I came into office, the county had lost $114 million in an investment scandal. Rather than raise taxes on everybody in the county to cover that deficit, we decided to reduce the overhead of the county, particularly around the number of county employees, by about 700 over the course of 2 years. That allowed us to shift that $114 million budget deficit into a $40 million budget surplus and get the county back on its feet again. The last 20 years, as you heard, I've been running a firm called LNE Group. We are among the largest state and federal combined advocacy firms in Ohio. We have, over the last 20 years, secured about $800 million for for client projects. Last year, for example, we secured $500,000 for the YWCA for their preschool program for homeless children, the only one in the state of Ohio. $500,000 United Black Fund to start a Black entrepreneurship program. $400,000 to help 8 Black-owned restaurants survive the pandemic, and a lot of other funds that we secured, totaling about $2.1 million just in 2022 as a private citizen. So I'm running again for county office because I see the county is terribly, terribly broken. We have among the highest property taxes, not just in the state of Ohio, but in the country. There are 3,200 counties in America. Only 144 have higher property taxes than we do. We have the highest sales tax in Ohio. Property taxes and sales taxes hurt senior citizens. So we need to find a way to take some of that pain away from our seniors. I have a bold vision for the county called Cuyahoga 2030, which will make it a better place to live for everybody in Cuyahoga County, especially for seniors. Let's look at 3 areas that I think impact seniors directly that I'm running on in this race: keeping seniors healthy, keeping seniors in their homes, and keeping seniors safe. We know that Cuyahoga County spends less money per capita on seniors than comparable counties in Ohio like Franklin and Hamilton. We know that needs to change. The County Department of Senior and Adult Services needs to expand what it does to help keep seniors in their homes longer. And I will do that as county executive. We also need to work with leading nonprofits like the Benjamin Rose Institute and the Area Agency on Aging to understand the needs of seniors, which we know are always changing in our community and in our country. So what can the county do best to support seniors? I think you folks have a better idea than maybe even our own Department of Senior Adult Services does. I'll work closely with you to make sure we are bringing the right ideas to the fore to support our seniors. I also want to roll back and freeze property taxes for senior citizens. This means if you're at least 60 years old, making less than $50,000 a year, excluding Social Security and pension benefits, we're going to freeze your property taxes until you sell that home. So if you're 60 years old and you live in that home for another 40 years, it'll be 40 years of freezing your property taxes to keep you in your home. We think that is important public policy, keeping seniors in their homes longer. That's why we're doing it. It's also an antidote to gentrification, which we know occurs when people move into neighborhoods and they increase the property values and property taxes, people lose their homes. The woman I talked to in Ward 1 of Cleveland, she's 97 years old, has owned her home since 1965, paid her mortgage off many years ago, but fears losing her house to rising property taxes. That should never happen in Cuyahoga County. If I'm executive, it won't happen. Finally, keeping seniors safer. I want to create a new county-wide major crimes investigation unit that'll have 100 to 150 new sheriff's deputies in it. They will do the work investigating major crimes to make sure that we solve those crimes. That puts more people on the streets to work with our local communities, police forces to keep our seniors safe in their homes, which is my goal. So keeping seniors healthy, keeping seniors in their homes, keeping seniors safe. That is my agenda as your next county executive.
Thank you, Lee. We have some questions that were prepared ahead of time. We will also have some opportunity for some submissions of questions from folks who are on the call today. But our first question for Lee Weingart is, according to research by the Center for Community Solutions, nearly 400,000 Cuyahoga County residents will be 60 years of age or older by 2030. It will take a collective effort from elected officials, civic and community organizations, and the public to make our region age-friendly. When you come to the end of your term as county executive, what are 3 things you hope to point to that improve the quality of life for older adults?
First thing would be keeping adults in their homes longer. This to me is absolutely critical. We know that if you stay in a home, your health is better than if you are put into a nursing home where you don't want to be or can't afford to be somewhere else. So I think to keep seniors healthy, we want to keep them in their homes longer. So we're focusing on seniors who are at least 60 years old, making less than $50,000 a year, again, excluding pensions and Social Security. There are 360,000 households in Cuyahoga County. We think 70,000 of those homeowners will benefit. They will meet the criteria that we've established. 60 years old, making less than $50,000 a year. So the first thing I want to do is to keep seniors in their homes longer. Secondly, I want to expand the amount of money that the county puts forward towards senior programming, whether it be food, transportation, in-home health care. We need to take a hard look at what the county is doing and not doing to support seniors to keep them in their homes longer. Then finally, I want to make sure seniors feel safer in their communities. Crime is no longer confined to the city of Cleveland. If you read the headlines, it's in Parma and Strongsville and Westlake and Chagrin Falls. So I think that my countywide major crimes investigation unit will put more police officers on the streets to try and fight crime at the source, working with community leaders all over the county to try and stem the tide of rising crime throughout the county. So I think through home ownership, expanding our services through the county, and keeping seniors safer, those will be my goals for my first 4 years as county executive.
Thank you. So the follow-up question, talking a little bit about the public side of that, public funding. The county government oversees the spending of public funding, including 2 property tax levies that bring in $285 million annually to support health and human services, and to administer the Department of Senior and Adult Services, or DSAS. What are your priorities for community programs, and how will this be reflected in your county budget?
Well, we have a host of community programs in place that have been in place for many years, supporting those who benefit from the health and human services levies, whether they be seniors, children at risk, Metro Health, those who have mental health, addiction challenges. I want to do a top to bottom review of all of these programs to see if they're really delivering results for the citizens of Cuyahoga County. Establish some key performance indicators, KPIs as we call them in the private sector, to make sure that the money that we are allocating from the health and human services levies is going to the right programs that work. So I have some doubt whether we're doing that right now. I don't feel like we're improving the environment in Cuyahoga County. I don't think we're really attacking and solving issues like addiction, mental health, poverty, unemployment, hopelessness, and of course, crime. In fact, a study that I did looking at 6 counties from around the Midwest placed Cuyahoga County last in critical categories like employment, poverty, hunger, homelessness, segregation, and crime. I don't think we're getting much bang for our buck, and we're taking a lot of bucks away from the citizens of this county. So I want to do a top to bottom review of every program that we're funding, look at alternative programs in the community that have not gotten funding for various reasons, maybe political in some cases, and make sure we have an array of programs available for people who benefit from our health and human service levies that makes them healthier, helps to extend their life, and a better life in Cuyahoga County.
Thank you. You mentioned public safety, and so we want to talk a little bit about public safety and access. So a 2015 needs assessment of Cleveland found that nearly half of older adults did not have access to well-maintained and safe parks. Sidewalks which connect older adults to these parks and other public spaces were often mentioned as a safety hazard due to disrepair. Community spaces, including parks, play an important role in connecting older adults in the community. With 40% of older adults living alone, these connections are crucial in combating social isolation and loneliness. What would you do to increase access to community spaces and improve the walkability and livability of the counter for older adults and those with impaired mobility?
So we think about the maintenance of parks, which tends to be a municipal function. So whether it be in the city of Cleveland or where I live in Shaker Heights. So I would want to work with the mayors around the county to understand the needs they have in their communities. Last Saturday, I was at Luke Easter Park in the city of Cleveland. It was a grandparents' day. I was there for a couple hours talking to seniors and even their grandkids about the parks. I was pulled aside by a senior who told me that this park has not had any renovations done as long as he can remember. And that's probably a long time given his age. So I'd like to work with the city of Cleveland, some of the first ring suburbs as well, to see what the county can do to provide resources or support to maintain our parks. I know from growing up that I spent a lot of time at Forest Hills Park in Cleveland Heights playing baseball and in other green spaces around Cuyahoga County. In fact, during my private sector career, we worked with the county treasurer, Jim Rokakis, to create the land bank in Cuyahoga County. We passed legislation in Columbus that created the land bank. The land bank has taken down a lot of very dangerous properties that were in many cases drug houses and other problems in the community. Also create opportunities for affordable housing and more green space in Cuyahoga County. So I would want to leverage what we have available right now in open spaces that's been created by the land bank to create more, even smaller parks that are near to where people live. So they don't have to get on a bus or walk down the street too far to get to a green space. I think the opportunities are there to do that. And as county executive, I will focus on it.
Thank you. Next, we want to ask a question about housing in the county. Housing stock is at an all-time low, and inflation and property taxes are on the rise, and more people retiring on a fixed income. What would be your administration's plan to assure safe, affordable, and sustainable housing for older adults in Cuyahoga County?
Well, I think I'm the only person in this race that's really talking about keeping seniors in the homes that they own, where they want to stay. I've talked to seniors at Wait Over Wednesdays and Luke Easter Park and all over the county for the past 19 months. And what they tell me is they want to be able to stay in their homes. So I was in Ward 1 a few months ago at a community meeting. And I talked to a woman who said, look, I want to stay in my home, but I can't afford to replace the roof or the boiler. So my program, my 10,000 Homes for Cuyahoga County program, which is different than the property tax freeze, helps 10,000 families stay or move into private homes. So in some cases, we're targeting younger families who are living in public housing or apartments so they can build or buy a home. We're also looking at people in Ward 1 and other parts of the city of Cleveland, the first ring suburbs, who just need maybe a $5,000 or $10,000 loan to replace the roof on their home or replace the boiler. That'll keep them in their home for another 10 years. So what we would do is the county would loan them the money. Let's say it's $10,000. It would be a long-term loan, zero interest, and only callable when they sell the home. So it's not an additional burden to that senior, no more money to pay out on a monthly basis. Rather, the county is a patient lender and makes the money available to that senior so he or she can make the repairs that they need to keep their home in order so they can stay in their home. I firmly believe in the power of home ownership, whether you be 25 years old like I was when I bought my first home, or be 95 years old and trying to stay in your home. Having a home makes you wealthier. Having a home makes you healthier. And I think that's a critical role for the county to play to provide opportunities for seniors to stay in their homes longer.
Thank you. I want to ask you a question about the American Recovery Plan Act funds, or ARPA. Funding from the American Recovery Act Plan and other pandemic relief programs offer a once-in-a-generation opportunity for investment in the community. What process do you envision for the county to spend the remaining ARPA fund dollars most efficiently and effectively?
Let's start with what happened first. So in 2020, the county got $215 million in CARES Act relief funding. County executive, who had run down the budget the prior 5 years, took $165 million of that and covered his payroll at the county. That money didn't go to small business or seniors or families, anybody who needed it. It was just to make up for the cash losses the prior 5 years. Fast forward to ARPA. I'm sure you've seen, famously, I'm the only candidate who at the very beginning came out against the illegal spending of ARPA funds by this county government. Directed funds by the county council members to their sweetheart projects in their home districts. I wrote a letter to the prosecutor asking him to restrain that spending. He declined, which is too bad because everybody knows that what they're doing is illegal. Plain Dealer called them out. So did Gene Kramer, who wrote the charter provision, which they were violating. There'll be about $54 million left when I become county executive, out of roughly $450 million if you count the CARES Act money from 2020. It's not very much money, unfortunately, but I'll use it in a transformative way. In fact, I want to use most of it toward my 10,000 Homes initiative to help 10,000 families build, buy, repair, or renovate a private home. That's a $600 million program, 100 million coming from Cuyahoga County, leveraging 500 million from the banks for mortgages, first and second mortgages, to help people buy homes or repair their homes. So that's a transformative program. That is not building a golf course clubhouse in Parma, which $4 million went toward, nor putting in splash pads in various suburbs of the county. My vision for 10,000 new private homeowners will transform the landscape in Cleveland, the first ring suburbs, creating wealth that starts and stays in the urban core, helping people buy homes and stay in homes longer.
Thank you. And Ronyane, one more question before we have some questions from the from folks on the call. This is about the digital divide. Some of the Benjamin Rose records show that only about 30% of our clients have access to high-speed internet in their communities. What would your administration do to help close the digital divide for older adults?
Well, there are a lot of facets to the digital divide as it relates to older adults. First, you have infrastructure issues in the city of Cleveland and some of the suburbs. When I drive home from downtown on Chester and I get to East 55th, I lose all contact with the internet in my car. So I think we have an infrastructure challenge in the city of Cleveland, certainly, and even in parts of, I was in Bay Village, and there are parts of Bay Village that don't have very good internet access. So we need to work with our communities to expand the infrastructure. We have better access there. And then seniors oftentimes have problems with technology. I do. I'm 56 years old, and I struggle sometimes with technology. My parents, who are 84 and 82, certainly struggle. So if we could work through Benjamin Rose and the Area Agency on Aging to help get seniors better access to training around IT and technical issues, that'll also help, I think. The city of Cleveland has given quite a bit of money to Digital C, and they've gotten money from some nonprofit organizations and some foundations. I'd like to see how they do over the next year or two, deploying that money in infrastructure and in access. I'll tell you one quick story. A woman that I talked to on the campaign trail, a senior woman, was living in a house in Cleveland, did not have access to the internet in her home. And so they brought the cable to her home, the internet to her home, and took 100 feet from the main line. And she is now processing unemployment claims for the state of Tennessee from her home in Cleveland. So not only is it about access to information in the internet, it's about potentially employment. So we need to figure out ways that we can use the internet to support seniors in their daily life, their health and other issues, but also providing opportunities for part-time jobs for seniors. They want to make a little money on the side because they're not making very much money, as we know, through Social Security. So I'll work with the communities, I'll work with the nonprofit organizations, I'll work with the providers in the private sector to see what we can do to improve access to the internet for our senior citizens.
Thank you. And now we have a question that came in from one of the folks watching the panel today, and I'm going to turn this over to Will Tarter from the Center for Community Solutions.
Okay, thank you very much, Orion. The question that we have, one is, the city of Cleveland just updated and codified a new complete streets policy. Is this something you would like to see expanded at the county level? And if elected, how would you institute a larger Vision Zero plan?
So the county certainly has responsibility for street maintenance and bridges. We have a large infrastructure budget at the county. I would work with the mayors to understand their priorities when it comes to streets in their communities. I'm not going to presuppose that I know every street in the county and the best way to maintain those streets. So I think it's important that we work together to identify priority streets and make sure that those are well paved and safe, well lit as well. I've got an idea that really gets at the county working more closely with the municipalities. It's unifying income taxes under the county. So rather than have 56 municipalities offer their own income tax, I would eliminate the authority of those municipalities to collect and keep income tax and replace it with a county income tax. That would mean the end of RETA, the end of CCA, and the end of some tax departments in cities like Lakewood and Parma. It also means we'll have more money available to invest in our municipalities. So between them, our CCA and RETA, the tax departments take about $20 million of the money they collect. I am proposing that the county will collect and distribute income taxes without keeping a dollar for itself. So if I can deploy an extra $20 million back into the system, giving it all back to municipal governments, they can use some of that money for street maintenance, which is important because we're starting to hear rumors that the state of Ohio may be cutting back on how much money it puts into street maintenance at the local and county level. So we need to figure out ways to squeeze every last percent out of the money we collect in income taxes, which we can do through the county at a much more efficient pace, and return the money that would otherwise have been taken by RETA and by CCA, put that money back in the hands of the mayors and the city councils so they can deploy it in the streets and other ways to keep their communities safe.
Okay. All right, let's start. Feedback, we're good, okay. Sorry, Lee.
No problem.
Can you hear me okay?
Just fine.
Okay. All right, I apologize about that. All right. Homelessness is growing with our seniors for a variety of reasons. Some don't have families. There's little, if any, transitional housing. Eliza Bryant's Elder Justice Center is closing. I know of no other plan for emergency shelter and transitional housing than Fairhill Partners with the Senior Guest House. What are your plans to help establish more transitional housing for our seniors who may need some temporary assistance?
So the closing of Eliza Bryant is a great tragedy for this county. Danny Williams, who was the CEO for a number of years, worked with me when I was county commissioner. He was our county administrator. I met with Danny a number of times to see if I could help do anything. I connected him to a leader in the nursing home industry to see what they could do to help keep Eliza Bryant open. And unfortunately, nothing could be done. So we could certainly transition that building into some sort of an emergency housing shelter for seniors. I mean, it is a good building. It's sitting there, to my knowledge, empty. And we could figure out a way to repurpose it for temporary housing for seniors who are in need. Again, I believe my idea of freezing property taxes will keep more seniors in their homes. I've talked to a lot of seniors, dozens, hundreds of seniors now over the last year or so, who are trying to fight the battle of gas, groceries, and taxes. Well, if I can eliminate the problem associated with one of those, taxes, by freezing them until they sell the house, that will probably keep more seniors in their homes longer. But I recognize we need a larger solution than just that. So maybe Eliza Bryant can be part of the solution. Maybe look at other buildings that are not being used in the county as part of the solution. So I'll look forward to working with Benjamin Rose and the Area Agency on Aging to find some creative solutions to help seniors who find themselves without a home.
I had to unmute myself. Sorry about that. Well, I think we have reached the end of our time with candidate Weingart. Lee, if you'd like to take a moment and share a closing remark, we have about 1 minute.
Thank you. When I think about seniors, I think about my own parents who are 84 and 82 years old. I know no one who influenced my life more than my own father. Now, they live comfortably in Bay Village, but not every senior has that same privilege and opportunity. So I'm running for county executive to make sure that we keep our seniors healthy, that we keep them in their homes, and we keep them safe. I have specific ideas to do that. That's important. You want a county executive who doesn't just talk government speak, but a county executive who has a definite vision for the county and concrete ideas of how to make it happen. I think my Cuyahoga 2030 plan is bold for everybody in Cuyahoga County. My goal is to reestablish public faith in our county government and to make Cuyahoga County a better place for all of us to live, work, raise a family, and especially retire. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Lee. All right. And next we will be hearing from candidate Chris Ronyane. which will be here in just a moment. Ah, there he comes. I'm going to give Chris a moment to get logged into the chat. While we're doing that, I'll give a brief introduction of Chris Ronyane. Chris is the other candidate for the Cuyahoga County Executive. Chris began his career in public service in 1996 with the Cuyahoga County Planning Commission, where he developed a community reinvestment plan with municipalities across Cuyahoga County. He became planning director for the city of Cleveland in 2002, where he was the chief architect for the Cleveland Lakefront Plan. Chris was then asked to serve as the chief of staff and chief development officer for Mayor Mike Campbell, overseeing 5,000 employees and managing a budget of more than $1 billion. After his time at Cleveland City Hall, Chris served as president of University Circle, Inc. from 2005 until October 2021. UCI is the nonprofit community service corporation that leads community development, education, and safety efforts in the University Circle neighborhood, Ohio's fourth largest job hub and Cleveland Center for its arts and culture activities. Welcome, Chris.
Well, thank you very much and good afternoon, everybody. I'm delighted to be on the line with the many partners. I appreciate the work you do. I want to especially call out Bert and Marcia. Thank you for what you submitted to the Center for Community Solutions just this week. It was a very thoughtful piece that I was glad to read that, and every other policy piece that was developed for Center for Community Solutions. So I'm grateful to be here today, and I just start my 5 minutes of introductory comments about, okay, great. Well, many of you know me. We've been working together in this community for some 25 years. I started actually my public service career at Cuyahoga County. I was involved with Commissioners Campbell, McCormick, and Hagan at the time on an initiative to help with workforce reconciliation, which was put upon us by the federal government, and the county shouldered what they then called welfare to work. But we worked quite a bit on the areas of transportation, of workforce development, of daycare provision, and a lot of other things that I was proud to be a part of in the human service delivery program when the county really worked. Senior and Adult Services certainly was a big part of that under then Director Jane Fumick. I went over to City Hall and became the planning director of the city of Cleveland, and really tried to work on what in the early stages we called complete communities. And it has a lot to do with an informed dialogue about this discussion today. We tried to build neighborhood centers that works for people in terms of an ability to maintain their residency by way of access to everyday things without having to get in a car, as many of our Cleveland residents, seniors or otherwise, couldn't necessarily access vehicles. So do they have access to transit? Do they have access to parks? Do they have access to proximate health care? Do they have access to education opportunities and social outlets? I'm proud to have been a part of that because I think it very much is a part of the kinds of things that Livable Cuyahoga is now partaking in. When I was in University Circle, same ideas applied. I was president of UCI for 16 years. Partners like Judson were on our board, but we were very much an intergenerational and an international community. On the intergenerational side, because of the presence of Judson, of Abington Arms, of the Commodore Apartments, the latter two of which we owned and maintained for senior affordable housing at UCI and University Circle, I was able to exercise this idea of a complete community again, where again, we were providing free transportation services, thanks to a shuttle services that was paid for everybody by our anchor institutions. We were able to build on our parkscape. We were able to create more social outlets, like the things that you just heard about, Wait Over Wednesdays, that we created, and just an intergenerational experience like no other in University Circle. We were very focused on infrastructure design because we needed to make sure that this was a community that was a walkable community. So universal design is something I'm focused on, particularly for those who are rolling on our sidewalks in chairs and otherwise. We need to make sure that we have communities that are complete, that work for everybody. So let me tell you a little bit about my plan for a new Cuyahoga. I take those experiences as a county planning commission member, the city planning director, and the president of a nonprofit, working with 40 institutions for greater community benefit. It inspired me to run, and to run on the idea of a healthy Cuyahoga. that starts with healthy communities. That all of what I just mentioned is a place that seniors can age in place, and that through the stages of life, you can live from the beginning of life to the end of life in your own community. I'm sitting in one of those communities right now in Lakewood, in my headquarter office, where I also worked on the planning department when I was coming through graduate school. But the Healthy Cuyahoga idea is just that: healthy communities that are vibrant, that are safe, that have accessible fresh food as a first choice, not a distant choice, that have transportation options. And you know what? That translates to longevity. We need to deal with the disparities that you well know by community, where a community could be, a person could be in a zip code in the neighborhood of Huff and be 20 minutes from Hunting Valley and have a delta of a 20-year lifespan. We've got to level the playing field. So when we read about things like blue zones in continents around the world where people are living longer lives, why are they living longer? I'm preaching to the choir, but just so you know, I think I'm among the converted. They're living because they have access to fresh food, walkable communities, that they have socialization outlets and access to healthcare. So a part of that Healthy County strategy is my payments in lieu of taxes program that I'm asking some of our major anchor institutions to partake in, to make sure, first and foremost, seniors have access to healthcare. And when we just lost Bedford and Richmond medical centers, it showed you exactly why we need this. We need in a healthy community a justice system that's not just a jail. We need a workforce system where adult workers can re-enter the workforce with the skills needed to scale up. And finally, we need a government that is accessible to the people, particularly our seniors. I'm thrilled that the Department of Senior and Adult Services, which I visited this past week, has an office on Mount Pleasant, in Mount Pleasant on Kinsman. I'm thrilled that that's one legacy of the administration I worked for. I want to bring neighborhood family services out to the communities again. And there are 3 specific departments I want to bring forth that I think will help our seniors: a dedicated housing department, a dedicated transportation department, and an ombudsman's office that helps with a healthy government strategy. So that's our plan for a healthy Cuyahoga, and I can go more into it, but healthy communities, healthy people, healthy economy, and healthy government. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. We have a series of questions that we will be asking. The first of these is about opportunities for leadership in the county. According to research by the Center for Community Solutions, nearly 400,000 Cuyahoga County residents will be age 60 years of age or older by 2030. It will take a collective effort from elected officials, civic and community organizations, and the public to make our region age friendly. When you come to the end of your term as county executive, what are 3 things you hope to point to that improve the quality of life for older adults?
Thanks for that great question. The first answer is that I want to see more intergenerational community legislation. And what I mean by that as a planner and a former planning director is we need to create in our zoning codes housing that is accessible to our seniors. We hear about too many communities where there is not zoning that befits senior needs. Flat homes, and I'm again preaching to the choir, that have single flats without necessarily being vertical. Accessory dwelling units, the proverbial in-law suite. I'm starting to see some ground made up in places like Lakewood. Frankly, where there's need for senior housing in clustered ways, we need to be able to provide that. If 28%, nearly 30% of our county residents by 2030 are going to be age 60, me among them, by the way, hard to believe in my own mind. But we need to provide housing opportunities that the city zoning codes are working for. Second, I want to see our transportation, our wellness, and our housing departments up and running and working for seniors. Those are a cluster of 3 divisions that I want to see at the county working for our counties and working for our seniors. So I want our government to be working by year 4 and hopefully earlier than that for our community residents. I also want to see us lean in on the Homestead Act of the state of Ohio. It's been 50 years since it was introduced, 50 plus years. And as you know, we may need to bring up income eligibility and also the value that can be earned back through the homestead exemption. So those are 3 areas that I'd like to see. Again, our communities are intergenerational by design. Our county government is working for our seniors with our housing, our transportation, our wellness departments, and that we have state legislation that's befitting of what our county residents need.
Thank you. Next, a question about funding priorities in the county budget. County government oversees the spending of public funding, including 2 property tax levies that bring in approximately $285 million annually to support the health and human services for older adults, as well as the administration of the Department of Senior and Adult Services, or DSAS. What are your priorities for the community programs, and how will these be reflected in the county budget?
Yeah, I mentioned one of them that I didn't elaborate too much on, but it's this idea of wellness centers. And the reason I take this up and take this very seriously, I think, again, you're so familiar with this, but Metro Health has told me what they've told you, that isolation is the biggest threat to public health. And our seniors are most vulnerable to isolation. So I want to see community wellness centers, particularly in communities where there are not sufficient senior centers and other recreational opportunities for our seniors, both on the sort of senior service and programs that serve seniors. I want to see our centers out in the community. So that's one area I think you're going to see more spending happening for our seniors. I think that in the area of housing, we will lean in on the proportionality that is a growing populace in Cuyahoga County, which is our seniors. So our housing initiatives will be very focused on senior support and all the things I mentioned before and more. I think that, I would hope that we provide a spectrum of housing opportunities, that we're looking at intergenerational solutions, that we're not isolating seniors among seniors only as a strategy. I think that we need to start thinking more about how our communities are designed for seniors to succeed and live longer lives. And then finally, there was at the City Club this past Friday, a very interesting exchange with Albert Ratner, Dr. Michael Rosen, and others about a longevity institute here. I'd like to see that longevity institute supported in Cuyahoga County at perhaps one of our universities, and not saying that we spend county money on that, but that we lean in to be a center of excellence working with you on seniors, on healthy living and longevity. Again, my whole framework is about health and longevity, and you're right in our wheelhouse.
Thank you. Next, we want to ask about public safety and access in the county. A 2015 needs assessment of Cleveland found that nearly half of older adults did not have access to well-maintained and safe parks. Sidewalks, which connect older adults to these places, were often mentioned as a safety hazard due to disrepair. Community spaces, including parks, play an important role in connecting older adults. And with 40% of older adults living alone, these connections are crucial to combating social isolation and loneliness. What will you do to increase access to community spaces and improve the walkability and livability of the county for older adults and those with impaired mobility?
Well, this is, it's a joy to get this question because I live this every day in all the work I do. One, I believe our community should have experience audits, and that we should audit our communities just like we do walkability scoring locally with our planning department and our Department of Senior and Adult Services and our other departments that relate to what is the experience for a senior, either as a walking senior or as a rolling senior or as a person who needs other assistance to get around. What is the experience community by community? And I think you'll see vast differences when we start scoring metrics for senior-friendly communities. I think you know that. So secondly, I'll lean in on some experience. And I don't talk too much about, my opponent may still be on the line, but there was an exchange we had on social media where I was an active proponent of clearing cars off of sidewalks in the Little Italy neighborhood. And he went after me and said, there's higher priorities. I find there's fewer higher priorities than, frankly, the mobility of our residents and as it relates to their health and longevity. The reason I was active on social media about this particular experience is a woman had been hit in a sidewalk because she lacked view shed. She could not see across the street, and she was hit on Mayfield Road. That's why I was out there with that particular advocacy. But getting back to my plan, we've already put it in place in University Circle. What we've done there is we've made sure that our crosswalks have sufficient lighting and signalization. We make sure that in advance on the fast speeding sidewalks, crosswalks, we're actually signing well in advance. I have to say, I'm motivated by the death of two seniors. One on Superior Road, just in Greater University Circle, north of University Circle, and one in University Circle, Mr. Maddox and Mr. Ali, respectively, both in their 70s and 80s. Mr. Maddox was simply walking across the street to a park, and he was hit and killed on Christmas Eve morning. I was motivated to make changes to slow traffic down. So I will continue to be there advocating for complete streets, making sure that our sidewalks are sufficient, our traffic is moving at the appropriate speed, and that not everything is about street resurfacing, but it's also about sidewalk upkeep and introducing new sidewalks into communities where they don't have them. I think that this is a key issue. My stepfather's 82. I was on a walk with him on Thursday in his community. Not enough sidewalks. He's walking in the curb, he's walking in the street, and he's vision impaired. So you have me at hello on advocacy for this.
Thank you. Next, we want to ask a question about housing. With the housing stock at an all-time low and inflation and property taxes on the rise and more people retiring on a fixed income, what will be your administration's plan to ensure safe, affordable, and sustainable housing for older adults in Cuyahoga County?
Great question. One, again, I mentioned earlier, working with you, and you're the policy experts in this field, I would like to understand better your opinions on the homestead exemption and see if there's a coordinated advocacy strategy that we can take together. That to me is a better way to go about bringing more resources to our seniors, is bringing up the amount that's allocated and bringing up the income that's eligible. I think if we work on freezing of the tax, we run into other problems in terms of communities not having enough resources to do the work they need to do, like provide public safety. So I think homestead's the first point. Second point is the housing department will be very dedicated to working with those who need us most, our seniors, top among them. When I think about the housing department, I think about two populations. I think about seniors and I think about the unhoused population, not that they're mutually exclusive in all cases, but I think that we need to be focusing on making sure we've got housing that's adequate for those who need us most. So there's a variety of ways to get to this. I think using the land bank more to zero out cost of land such that our building can be more affordable and that our rents can come down. There's a lot to that, but I have experience in working on 5,000 home units in this county already, 2,500 in the last year and a half in University Circle, much of that for seniors. So the housing department is answer number two. And I think the third is to make sure we're working collegially across departments, that senior and adult, that transportation, that housing is looking at how we're creating locationally efficient place for seniors, that when you bundle utility costs, medical costs, transportation costs, and housing, rent, and mortgage payments, that payment is sort of thought of comprehensively, right? So that our departments are working together for how we would think of any one of our parents, ourselves, our in-laws, or grandparents, is what does it take to keep them in their home? And let's think thoughtfully about it. We can solve this.
Thank you. Next, we have a question about the American Recovery Plan Act funds in the county. Funding from the American Recovery Plan Act, or ARPA, and other pandemic relief programs offer a once-in-a-generation opportunity for investment in the community. What process do you envision for the county to spend its remaining ARPA dollars most efficiently and effectively?
One, I want to lean in on what Mayor Bibb did with a housing fund, and if we can match it, which is to say bring 50 million more to the equation of housing and to solve the complicated equations of senior affordability. That is something that I applaud the mayor for having done. It could be done with some ARPA money, but it doesn't need to be all ARPA money. It could be bonded and otherwise to create this housing fund. It's essentially a housing trust fund for our seniors and our most vulnerable here in county. And I think there's a way to do this. If you're going to build a department, you can't create a department with no teeth. It's got to have resources to do its job. So that's one thing that I'm certainly thinking of. I think that ARPA is fleeting, that we shouldn't think of it as any kind of sustainable source because it's not. So we've got to build in more sustainable systems for our seniors, which I come back to looking at this Homestead Act with you. And I also think that we really should be more coordinated with our senior departments across the communities that have them and the city of Cleveland, making sure that we've got coordinated strategies that are working together.
Thank you. And now a question about the digital divide. Our research at Benjamin Rose shows that less than a third of our clients have access to high-speed internet in their home. What would your administration do to help close the digital divide for older adults in our county?
Yeah, this is a solvable problem. First of all, we've got to get to the business of mapping where our variance is. It's probably out there, but there's different contractors working for the city of Cleveland, as you know, and county. We need to get folks working together. As you all know, in digital divide, it's connectivity, but it's also devices, literacy, and making sure that we can afford it, right? So I think that the affordability, getting back to that bundled cost of senior living on fixed income specifically, is something we ought to think about subsidizing. I mean, if a senior is unable to speak with their grandchildren digitally, which is the way my kids speak almost all the time now, we've got to solve that problem. So I think we should focus, yes, on connectivity, but long-term on affordability, and be getting toward this as a public utility that needs to probably be supported with public funds in addition to payment streams from seniors.
Thank you. At this point, we have completed the prepared questions ahead of time. However, we did have questions from people that are watching on the forum today, and I'm going to turn this over to Will Charter from the Center for Community Solutions, who will share those questions with the candidate now.
Thanks, Chris. Can you hear me okay?
I can.
All right, excellent. The city of Cleveland just updated and codified a new complete streets policy. Is this something you would like expanded at a county level? And if elected, would you institute a larger Vision Zero plan?
Yes, and those are two pieces to the same question, which I'm glad they're brought up together. Harkening back to University Circle, we started something called Project Yield. Project Yield was essentially in support of both planks, the complete streets with crossable intersections, with view sheds at the intersections, with longer signalization, with accessible pedestrian triggers for the crosswalks, and making sure that we had a pedestrian first philosophy. And it was particularly motivated by being in a community that had a high population of seniors. So we've already done this in University Circle. I believe very much in the idea of broadening with the mayors and finding ways to incent them to bring forth complete streets legislation. It to me is something we need to do, and I definitely want a countywide Vision Zero. I believe we will have a very willing audience with the mayors, because the Vision Zero is just who in their right mind wouldn't support the idea of zeroing out pedestrian fatalities. So we went for that in University Circle after the two tragedies I referenced. The next 3 years, we were zero void of traffic fatalities. So when you lean in on it and you work at it, you can get somewhere on it. I think that the complete streets legislation, I understand it. I'm not sure it's broadly understood among all candidates, but I understand it. I work at it. And when you're in other communities, both domestically and internationally, you see that seniors are able to age in place because there's wide sidewalks, crossable intersections, slower moving traffic, and transit accessibility.
Great. Thank you, Chris. All right.
Are you able to hear me okay? All right, excellent. Homelessness is growing with our seniors for a variety of reasons. Some don't have families. There's little, if any, transitional housing. Eliza Bryan Elder Justice Center is closing. I know of no other place for emergency shelter and transitional housing than Fairhill Partners, the senior guest house. What are your plans to help establish more transitional housing for our seniors who may need temporary assistance?
Yeah, in the words of Nike, just do it. Just do it. We have in front of us an opportunity to be a best-in-class community as it relates to housing for the unhoused, period. I have, in the last 2 weeks, toured 2100 Lakeside. I was with YWCA last week. I believe very much that we need, especially as our population proportionally grows, seniors to provide not just adequate, but strong temporary emergency housing for seniors, leading to permanent support housing for seniors. And I think the combination of community land banks, area nonprofits that work in this space, the CDCs in our communities and growing those to a county footprint, we can solve this problem. We really can. I've spoken extensively with NEOC about it. Will, I loved what Center for Community Solutions did with the white papers from all of your visiting authors, because they all interrelate. And I believe that a housing department, which again, I'm being picked on a little bit for introducing it as a new government office. Well, these are the times. We've got growing senior homelessness. Let's have a housing department that helps address their issues. So it's within us to solve this problem. I would invest in it as well. Just when I say just do it, I would invest in senior temporary emergency and permanent supportive housing.
Thank you, Chris. We have now reached the end of our time for questions. We have 1 minute for a closing comment from you, and then we will have some comments from Simone McNitt to close us out.
Thank you for the opportunity to be with you today. I invite, if we're elected, you to be a vital part of the Healthy Cuyahoga strategy. We would look at our seniors just as we look at our early year children as the canary in the mine. It tells everything about a society is how you treat your oldest residents and your youngest residents, because it equates to the most vulnerable that need us, right? And I also would say that we also need to be thinking about how to help persons simply live more active, longer quality of lives, you know, and everything we've talked about in the last 30 minutes adds up to that. How are we designing our communities? Is there access to be a complete community to everything you need in your daily lives without having to get in a car, because you may not be able to do that? And I'm committed to this. I'm a city planner who believes in complete streets and complete communities with complete housing for all. And so with that in mind, I look forward to a healthy Cuyahoga that has healthy community design for its people, healthy economies that's working for all, and a healthy government that is responsive to the needs of today and tomorrow, as we discussed on this line today. We'll do that with a housing department, a transportation department, and an ombudsman's office that's working with our Department of Senior and Adult Services here in the county, but throughout our municipal departments. And mostly, the new vision I have is that the public-private partnership becomes the public-private nonprofit partnership that's of national notoriety and includes you. Thank you very much. And I hope to speak a lot more with you guys on this subject.
All right, can everybody hear me here? Okay, great. So we have some voting resources. Go to Ohio Votes, check your registration, register to vote, request an absentee ballot, find your voting place, learn what's on your ballot, track your absentee ballot, apply to become a poll worker. Other important dates: October 11, vote registration deadline is 9 p.m. October 12th, early in-person and vote by absentee ballot voting opens. November 7th, absentee ballots must be postmarked on or before this date. November 8th, Election Day, polls open at 6 a.m. to 7:30 p.m. Benjamin Rose has resources to support older workers to vote in the midterm elections on November 8th. The registration to vote, update your address or information, or request a mail-in ballot application. Call Benjamin Rose 216-791-8000. Thank you.
Thank you, Simone. Thank you to our candidates for sharing the hour with us today and discussing these issues. And thanks to everyone who joined in for today's forum online. And don't forget to register. Don't forget to vote. It matters. And thank you for your time today. And thanks again to Lee and Chris for your participation. Have a wonderful afternoon.
Thanks, Orion. Thanks, everybody.